Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Nourish Spot Hour on Caribbean Buzz Radio and TV. I'm Dawn Kelly, host of the Nourish Spot Hour and CEO of the Nourish Spot, a quick-serve healthy food and beverage haven here in Jamaica, Queens on Guy R. Brewer Boulevard. Today I have an exciting show planned. I had the fortune of meeting the young lady to my right, Yasminetheresa Garcia, some time ago, and she invited me to speak to some of her charges at Good Shepherd. And while we were there talking, I learned something about Yaz that I didn't know. And so what I learned was so interesting. I've invited her and her very good girlfriend, Nuratu Olulana, to join us. So, yes, you have two companies, Y, the G, and EBIOP.
Yes, EBIOP Inc.
We're going to start with you.
Right.
And we're going to start with those.
Yes.
Okay?
Let's do it.
Because we talk about entrepreneurism here on the Nourish Spot Hour. Tell me about your two companies and what they do.
Yes. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me, and congratulations on your new award.
Thank you.
So Y the G is pretty much my brand. I have a clothing brand. Y the G means Yasminetheresa Garcia, which is my name, just cut up into pieces. And it really represents the G in me. You know, you got to have a little gangster in you. Growing up in East New York, that kind of was my embodiment, just living in my environment and seeing what people had to do to get by. And for me, everything that I saw was entrepreneurship. The people who, you know, lived in the streets and did their stuff in the streets, they had to survive. They did what they could with what they had. So for me, I believe everybody has a little G in them that helps them wake up every day and make, you know, the right choices to keep going. So I have a clothing brand, and this is part of my clothing brand, representing a lot of pro-Black love and also encouraging math and education in everything that we do, and honoring our ancestors and those who came before us, and really paved the way for a lot of us to do what we can do now freely, and monetizing the things that we do and create. And Y the G also represents who I am as a writer, as a yoga instructor, as a birth doula, and a sex educator. And with that being said, I actually was inspired to create something for my community, which then was birthed EBIOP Inc., which is a nonprofit organization that provides free workshops, well, not always free, but workshops, educational classes, and community events like Why the Girls Hang Out, where women come together and speak about things that are very taboo in our culture, like sex and relationships and money, you know, how to make money and keep it and grow it. And yeah, EBIOP stands for Birth Options. It was really created also to give women and families, especially families of color, the opportunities and the option to know their rights in the health and maternity industry, and know that they should live by what they believe in their culture or their belief system, and that no system should be put against them to control the way they want to raise and birth their families. And I want to make sure I don't miss anything. I also, yeah, go ahead.
So that brings us to Nuratu. So Yaz told me when I invited her to be on the show, I said to her, you should bring somebody with you. And she quickly suggested you. Now, I know that you're the owner of Light Work Birth Services. Tell us more about Light Work Birth Services and what that is.
Well, thank you both for thinking enough of me to have me here. Yes, I am a birth and postpartum doula.
And what is a doula?
What is a doula? A doula is your non-clinical support during pregnancy and birth, right? So there's been a lot of conversation lately about Black women and our maternal mortality and morbidity and the experiences that we have when we're giving birth, when we're pregnant, and even after birth, right? Like you have high profile cases like Beyonce, who in her Vogue article talks about how she had to have an emergency C-section. You have women like Michelle Obama, who shared her experiences with having to have assistance to conceive. You have Serena Williams, and these are high profile, like the most visible Black women in the country, arguably in the world. And they still experience traumas, or they experience situations that for other women don't have this positive outcome. And so in New York City, you're 12 times more likely to have complications in birth. So as a Black woman who loves Black people unapologetically, I definitely felt the call to educate women and to support women when they're stepping into these medicalized spaces to, in their most vulnerable times, to give birth, because not everyone, most of us don't have Beyonce money and a private team of doctors and Serena Williams visibility. And, you know, even Serena Williams, who had near-death experiences with the birth of her daughter because her pain wasn't immediately acknowledged. That is when and how women die. And so a birth doula is there to empower you, to encourage you, to educate you, to tell you what your options are, and to help you understand what happens in birth so that you can make the best decisions for yourself.
So let me ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm a little older than you guys.
Just a smidgen.
So is a doula the same as a midwife?
So what I tell people is that doulas are to midwives what nurses are to doctors.
Thank you.
Right? So
Yes.
people have this idea, a doula is not the same as a midwife, because we will not perform medical tests or interventions, right? But we will absolutely positively explain to you what the things are that are happening to you in a medical space. So a doctor, OBGYN, is a surgeon, and they can perform surgery. A midwife can do everything a doctor can do except perform surgery. And then you have a lot of midwives are actually nurses also, so you have your certified nurse midwives. Then you have your regular nurses, and then you have your doulas. And we are the ones who will stay with you throughout your pregnancy, throughout your labor. So as soon as you start feeling contractions, we will be with you from wherever you are. If you're going to a hospital, we'll be there with you. And we stay there until the baby and placenta are born. And we explain to you every step of the way. We are like your pregnancy best friend and cheerleader.
Cool. Wow. Well, you know, I wish I would have known this. I got two questions. Well, one question and one statement. So the first question is, does insurance pay for you guys, or does the woman or family have to pay for your services? So that's my first question.
Yes. So I definitely say our work is that valuable that should be paid for sure. And when we put money into something, we obviously are invested into it. So that's very important one to notice. But for the most part, there's a lot of bills being passed across the country for doulas to be compensated by governmental agencies.
And insurance companies.
Okay.
Private insurance companies.
So right now there are some legislators working on new legislation to increase the chances that you guys' work would be covered by an insurance company?
In some places it already is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of politics involved.
Okay.
Do insurance companies pay doulas? A lot of times, no.
Okay.
Is it
An option?
An option, yes. But is
Okay.
it always? No. So a lot of times doulas are contracted by women who have the means to pay us.
Okay.
Which leaves out the women who need it the most.
Mostly
because
people
they
that are
don't have-
disadvantaged.
They don't have the money.
Right.
They don't have the money. So as
Right.
doulas, we do
Or the
work.
knowledge.
Or the knowledge.
Right.
They don't have the access.
Right. Because I would tell you this. When I had my son, no, actually it wasn't my son. It was I gotta make sure which one it was. It was my son, okay? It was my firstborn, okay? I was in labor for 26 hours. And my ex-husband was no help. And I would tell you that I really wanted to give natural birth. Now, they had already told me, my obstetrician told me that he didn't think that was possible because he said my pelvis was too small or something. Yeah, too narrow or something. And then I thought, oh, it would be cool to give birth in water, right? Because I've seen that before, and it just looked like it would be more soothing to me and to the baby. But when I asked them about that, they looked at me like I had 4 heads, right? So I'm in the room, you know, I'm going through my labor pains. It's probably hour 22, and I'm losing it, right? Just losing it. Like, I can't take the pain anymore. And my ex-husband is not being any help because I want an epidural now. And he's like, oh, you shouldn't take that. Well, you're not feeling this pain, right? So the doctor, the nurse comes in, you know, she gives me, or so she thinks, she gives me the epidural, and then they tell me they're about to wheel me in so that I could give birth. When we get into the operating room,
Oh my God. I already know how this goes.
when we get into the operating room and they start to like test to see if I'm not feeling any pain, I tell them that I'm still in pain and that I'm feeling every single thing that they're doing, including the labor pains, which are driving me insane, okay? I really just want to yell, get him out, okay? Because I cannot stand the pain that I am withstanding right there. And I'm also like losing my mind because I'm like, didn't she just put something in my spine? Like, aren't I not supposed to be feeling any pain?
Right.
Okay? And come to find out, whatever she did not go into my spine. Okay? I don't know where it went, but they had to do it again. So if I had a doula or even a midwife, would that have been alleviated?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And tell me how. I don't care who
Go
speaks
ahead.
first.
So, I mean, I'm shaking my head because for several reasons.
Okay.
So your son is an adult now.
Yes, he's 30 years old.
But the way that you can vividly remember and recount that.
Yes, vividly.
And on top of that, it's a blessing that everything went the way that it did and didn't actually turn out worse, because for another person, the situation could have been very different. Because you see how you told the team, the medical staff, that you were still in pain, that something wasn't right. Would your experience have been different with a doula? Absolutely.
Okay.
Because one of the primary responsibilities and roles of a doula is to tell you what could happen so that you know, to empower you with the information on what questions to ask. And in the moments where you can't physically do it for yourself, we work on your behalf.
Oh, okay.
So we can step in, you know, in your experience, which you very, very vividly remember, and say, listen, she's still in pain. Let's try this again. Or even to say, you know what? Let's try something else that will alleviate her pain. Maybe if she gets out of the bed and she can walk. Maybe if she can get in the shower, not the tub. Maybe if we can try some deep breathing exercises, or maybe if we can try some kind of relaxation. Were you allowed to drink water? Did your birth end in a C-section? Like, these are all of the things.
It ended in a C-section.
It ended in a C-section because they didn't want to wait for your body. They didn't want to wait and facilitate and help your body do what it is designed to do. Your body is not going to confuse or confound you. That's what I always tell women. Your body is divine, and it is meant to do this. So if you are willing to work through the pain, which has a purpose. The pain has a purpose. And Yaz says this in her excellent childbirth education course, that there's a reason why you are experiencing this pain, because your body is getting ready to bring forth another life.
Right.
And so there are steps and processes that need to take place that doctors don't have the time or the patience to wait for. And unfortunately, something that most people don't know, that most OBGYNs have never been present at a natural labor.
They're not required to witness a labor as obstetrician. They're essentially, glorified surgeons. So when you go to school as an obstetrician, once you graduate, you're a doctor and you're able to, deliver babies. However, when you're a midwife, you cannot start practicing until you've worked and witnessed live births and assisted in live births, natural,
uninterrupted, non-medically intervened births.
Okay.
Yeah. And one thing I do want to mention as a doula, in your story, of course it would have made a difference, and regardless of what there was a purpose for it, because now your story, the way you still remember it and can tell it, can change so many other women's lives and their perception when it comes to birthing their child. But what we do as doulas is essentially listen. You know, we listen in ways that the doctors don't have time for. You know, midwives too, they listen because our scope of practice is much more intimate and personal. We believe that we still have to get to know you on a certain level to be able to care for you and provide you a positive service through your experience by understanding your belief system and your cultural beliefs, and we're able to serve you from that aspect. But to listen to you in that beginning of your experience when you said you wanted to have a water birth, they may have been a doula where they could have been like, okay, maybe there's a reason why she's asking for this and we need to pay attention.
You're watching the Nourish Spot Hour on Caribbean Buzz Radio. I'm Dawn Kelly. To my left, I have Nuratu Olulana, owner of Lightwork Birth Services. And to my right, I have Yasminetheresa Garcia of Y the G and EBIOP. And we're talking about childbirth and doulas and self-care and wellness and speaking up for yourself because it's very, very important. So I want to talk a little bit more about this topic. So, you know, if I hadn't screamed and hollered and said, listen, listen, you know, I still feel pain. I don't know what might happen to me or my son. And sometimes I wonder if some of that trauma still lingers, you know?
If you haven't resolved it, yes.
Yeah, it still lingers, right? Because it scared the life out of me, I would tell you.
But listen to how you said that. It scared the life out of you. The 10 months that you took to incubate that life, it scared it out of you because a team of people was not trained to listen to you and to respond to you. And I'll even go so far as to see the validity of your humanness, because a lot of the challenges that doulas face, that women face, are inextricably linked to racism and race in this country. And I can't help but wonder if, as a black woman, was your doctor or the team black?
Well, my OBGYN was black, okay? Dr. Niles, he was black, but the team around him wasn't, and the anesthesiologist wasn't, and the nurse, I would tell you, the nurse had no bedside manner. She was the meanest woman I had ever met in my life.
Nurses are always so mean.
I hear that a lot. I've actually seen it a lot, and I've heard it also.
I mean, and she was insensitive to my... She was insensitive to my pain. And at one time pretty much told me kind of like to suck it up. And I'm an African American studies major. So luckily for them, I was in pain. I would just say that because I do recognize that it is all geared to racism. And had I not been a black woman, I'm sure that my situation would have been handled differently.
You know, unfortunately, I've seen it with non-black women, but it happens to us worse, right? And so even with this current conversation about maternal mortality and morbidity and black women, we're the canary in the coal mine always, right? So when things happen to us, they always happen to us worse. And it always predicts what's to come for other people. So in the field of obstetrics, which is actually, if you think about it, it only actually became a field in the 19th century. So you mean to tell me that the 18th centuries that you were counting before that, when women were giving birth, they didn't have these OBs.
No. So who was birthing?
So who was birthing them?
Right.
Because if you think about it, 80% of the world's population is delivered through midwives.
Yes.
Absolutely. Worldwide.
In this country where it is tied to profit and capitalism and race, black women get the short end of the stick.
Even though we were the guinea pigs for obstetrics.
So how do we change this, ladies? How do we change? What are you guys doing in the work that you do every day? How do we change that trajectory for women that are pregnant? You know, disadvantaged women that are pregnant, not just black women, but women of color, women of less means.
Women, period.
How do we change it?
I definitely don't go a day without speaking to people about what I do. because even in the beginning of our conversation, the misconception of what is the difference between a doula and a midwife. And I've even had brothers around 30s and 40s tell me recently, like, oh, that's a trend now. You know, midwifery and doula work is a trend. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You clearly don't know the history of your own grandmother, great-grandmother in this country, the granny midwives who were the ones helping birth half, if not the whole nation, which is standing right now. So having a conversation and talking about what we do is so important. And when we have these conversations, we're obviously talking about women's health, men's health, because midwifery is not just for women. You know, midwives, they were the doctors in the community for both men and women. So it's very important to speak on it and doing the work in our communities. Like I offer childbirth education classes. And listen, everybody knows if you're talking to me, we're either talking about sex, finances, maternity, health, something along the lines.
So yes, how do people get in touch with you if they want to talk to you or have a consultation with you about any of those subjects that you just mentioned? How do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, they could always just find me on social media, _, or go to my website, ytheg.com.
Okay. And for you, Nuratu, I'm going to get it right. I'm going to get it right. Nuratu, how do people get in touch with you?
I'm really good with emails, and I feel like they can bloom into other conversations. So if you shoot me an email, I will typically respond to you in 24 hours or less. I mean, we can set something up, or we can talk about what it is that you have a question about. And my email address is light, like light, LIGHT, work, births, with an S, BIRTHS, @gmail.com.
Okay. So we're going to move on a little bit to talk about some other stuff. Talk about us as women, and talk about, you know, what makes you tick, right? So because you're working with such a sensitive subject, I want to know how you take care of yourself. What's your wellness regimen? Right? So who wants to go first?
So I have a few rituals because I respect my ancestors. Some of my rituals include drinking a lot of water, eating a lot of fruits, even though I'm out of my habitat, not being exposed to the sun, and activating my melanin. I also do a lot of oils. I actually create my own coffee oils that I lather my body with every day, and with doing so, I activate my circulatory system, my nervous system, and I really do those small things as a woman that I think we need to do as people, that really just cover ourselves with love and attention just by laying of a hands on ourselves. So something that simple to me is very important. And I'm vegan, so I eat really well and I take care of my body, and I speak very positive about my body and my mind. And I'm like, there's no limits, honey. Maybe somebody told you it wasn't great, but you're great and you're gonna do great things. And I just, like we were talking about it earlier when we walked in, we're very thankful. Like we walk in gratitude. That really is something that I live by.
Okay. And what about you, young lady? What are some of your wellness regimens? My
wellness regimens. I definitely value sleep, though sometimes it feels hard to come by. Reading. I really I'm very deliberate about trying to feed my mind, because all things start there. So I definitely read a lot, as much as possible. I feel like a great nap, a great book, a great shower, or a great just physically taking care of your body, are really, really wonderful things. I'm big on tea. I drink me a cup of tea. I know I have a lot of West Indian friends who swear that tea fixes everything.
Every Caribbean.
and music, right?
Okay.
Music definitely helps, and I'm trying to get serious about my meditation practices of just like pausing.
I do want to say that you and me both, and actually you too, Dawn, we're very big readers, but also writers. And I'm learning how important it is to write. I've written my whole life, but now, not only is it important for us to tell our story and publish it for the world to read it before somebody else tells our story, it's very important that we begin to meditate through writing and letting go of some of these experiences that we harbor in our hearts.
That's true. I definitely agree with that. So I have you said something, and it's funny, in my bag when we go on break, I'm going to get it. But you said something about books, and that was one of the questions that I was going to ask you ladies. I wanted to know, what was the latest book you've read and why?
I got a couple. Okay. So I actually just got a book in the mail today that I was so excited about. It's about slavery and racism and birth. And labor and delivery for slave women. Okay. And I'm also reading another book about birth and the medical system in the United States. And I am reading Toni Morrison, The Origin of Others, and really trying to figure out how to develop the language that's necessary for us to even start to have the conversation in a real full way, because when you think about it, everything's linked to words. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, right? And God spoke, and then there it was. So I definitely, I just actually told my son today that he needs to pick up The Way of the Superior Man. Okay. So I definitely am always around books, but the last book that I put my hands on to open to read, I want to think of the name of it, but it was about antebellum slave women and reproduction. Okay.
Yes.
I'm like across the board with that one. So I'm actually reading Raising a Black Child, I believe is the actual title, by Laila Africa. Okay. And by Sister Soldier, Midnight and the Meaning of Love.
Oh, she has a new book?
That's the second installment of Midnight, and there's 3 of them.
Oh, okay.
So that's the second installment.
So I have to get that, because
she had a trilogy.
I didn't know there was. Okay, I didn't know there was another one.
We fell in love with Midnight and the coldest winter ever.
Right.
So
this is the last one.
So the coldest winter ever was
the original.
But
the character Midnight.
So the character Midnight then started its own series, and it's number 1, a gangster love story. Okay. Number 2 is Midnight and the Meaning of Love, and number 3 is Midnight, a Moment of Silence.
You see, now I did not know that, so now I have to go get
that
those.
That one came out 2016.
I have to go get the rest of them.
You do.
Yes, because we did amazing. All fall in love with Midnight.
We did.
Yes.
Definitely. And that was, I remember reading that book when it first came out. I was in high school, and I'm like in the shower reading the book because I had to finish it.
Right.
What? And I'm
like in the streets walking.
Right, that first line, I came busting out my mama's, on the coldest day, and she named me Winter. And see, there we go, childbirth, right? It's
yes.
But that book really spoke to so many people in so many ways, and will forever and ever and ever.
And
I'm still waiting for them to put that in a movie.
In the movie,
I don't understand why we haven't seen it yet.
A part of me is not. I want them to do it right.
Exactly.
Right.
So if this time period is the incubation for y'all to do it right, just make sure you do it right, because you can't afford to drop the ball on that kind of book.
No, not just the Soldier Chill, because she was, epic. She is. Sorry, because she ain't nobody. But I want to say how important it is that I actually share this book with a lot of youth. Okay. Because it was The Coldest Winter Ever was the first novel I ever read.
Really?
Yeah, it was the first novel I ever read in junior high school, because I just didn't really like books like that. But when I started reading books that were relatable to where I grew up and what I saw and the people around me and the men around me, it's so important that our children read these kind of books so that they fall in love with reading, because it speaks in our language and it speaks to some of the experiences that we've had.
It's true. It's true. I think we're going to take a little break. You're watching the Nourish Spot Hour on Caribbean Buzz Radio. I'm Dawn Kelly. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Nourish Spot Hour on Caribbean Buzz Radio. I'm Dawn Kelly, and we're really happy today. We're here with Nuratu and Yasminetheresa Garcia, and we're really talking about wellness and self-care, but more importantly, we're talking about women and birthing. Something that is most important, because if women didn't birth babies, none of us would be here. Right? Really, none of us would be here. And while we were on break, I thought of something. So you were mentioning some of the books that you were reading about slavery. What was the name? I think you found the name of the book.
I did. So the name of the book is Birthing a Slave, Motherhood and Medicine in the Antebellum South by Marie Jenkins Schwartz.
Okay.
So that came in the mail today, and I was
Excited, right? And you know, you said something that was really telling. I mean, in my studies as an African American histories major at Howard University, you know, we learned all about slavery, right? And you know, growing up, I'm a child of the '60s and '70s, right? We watched Roots, you know, and some of the other new shows that have been on, like. What was it? Escape to Slave. There was one on television. There was 2 shows on TV that I really liked last season. But I can see in my head the black woman birthing the babies. I can see her birthing, and I hate to say this word, but the master's babies, right? And I see her birthing with having somebody run out to the well to get clean water, hot water, right, to birth the babies. So black women have been midwives, if you will.
Forever.
doulas, if you will,
since the beginning of the time.
Absolutely.
Since there have been people, there have been doulas.
Midwives and doulas.
And we were talking about it on break, but I think it's important to mention that there aren't enough doulas, right? This work is so important for people who don't know and who aren't aware, because doulas are the ones that are there with you from the beginning to the end, and we can be your voice and help you find your voice. So anyone can be a doula. You just have to have the compassion and the patience to walk through the process with the person. We need more doulas. We need lots more doulas.
And midwives.
And midwives.
So if somebody was interested in becoming a doula, like today, after hearing our show, or you know, next time somebody listens or watches, what should they do?
Well, there are some, organizations out there, because doula has become a part of the lexicon, right? And people are now saying this word all the time, and you're hearing doula. So people are like, I want to do that. And I was fortunate enough to be trained by a holistic doula who really focused on not just your physical body, but also your emotional self, and connecting to that self and this spiritual journey of pregnancy, and how to nourish yourself in the most natural ways. So I think that, there's programs out there that will certify you as a doula, but a doula is not a job that just stops. You're constantly learning. You're constantly learning how to be better at supporting women. So I don't want to say one program over the other that you should look to, but it's definitely, because it's becoming part of the conversation more. Google it.
Yeah.
Ask the Google.
That's the magic answer. Google it.
And figure out which program works best for you, right?
Okay.
Because while Yaz makes her own scrubs and is very, very natural in her approach, and I really, really appreciate and respect wellness and spirit, there are other people who are like, man, I just want to get it on paper, and I can't spend all of that time. I just want to do it. So
everybody practices different.
Everybody practices differently.
So they just have to do a workshop. There's programs that certify you, and I want to be very clear about this. There's programs that certify you. However, once you do a weekend workshop to become a doula, you then begin to work as a doula in training. That means while your certification process is being completed by you, you actually have to have at least 3 clients that you take on and work as a doula for. And sometimes you might do it as a volunteer job, or you actually charge a client for that, whether it's your family members, friends, or somebody in the community. I think I lost my train of thought.
I will say, if I am giving a shameless plug.
Yes. Shameless plugs are okay.
I'll give a shameless plug if you ask me for it. Ancient Song in Brooklyn. Is a collective of black women who are mothers, who are daughters, who are sisters, who are friends, but they are also doulas and birth workers, childbirth educators, like how the work that Yaz does, and the work that I do. So they will train you as a doula. So you will be a certified doula if you can meet the requirements of their program. But they absolutely, you get your initial training, and you can go on to, like I said, meet the certification requirements, but you can work as a doula after you've gone through their training. So Ancient Song, they actually do a lot of work around policy also in New York State. They're a good place to start if you're looking for training to become a doula.
And Mama Glow Maven.
Glow Maven is another
Glow
one.
Maven, she does training as well in Brooklyn.
Latham Thomas,
Latham
they're
Thomas.
talking about you.
Yeah, she does training all over the world. Let me be clear. She's very amazing in the work that she does. And it's very important that we do invest in this kind of work. Not only doulas, but midwifery school. If you know somebody who wants to be a midwife and they're trying to pay for school, please allow them the support. Please, you know, the same way y'all shop for stuff, provide people with this kind of support, monetary support. Also to say that as doulas, oh my God, I lost my train of thought.
It's okay, because you know what? I wanna, as we get closer and closer to the end of the show, I wanna ask a couple of questions, right? Because it's not just about, you know, what you do, but it's also about who you are, right? Absolutely. So I wanna ask a couple of rapid fire questions as we wrap up the show. So one is, what's your superpower or what's your spirit animal? Who wants to answer?
My superpower is transformation. I believe that I can be a chameleon in wherever I am or whatever I'm doing. If I am called to be it, I will show up as it.
And you?
I would say my spirit animal would be a giraffe.
Okay, and why?
Because tall and seeing the things takes time, but is wise and respected. Like, you don't really hear too much about, oh, the lions are fooling with the giraffes, and that. Nah, the giraffe is there. The giraffe is seeing stuff. The giraffe is gliding through. Giraffe is necessary part of the ecosystem and the environment, and the giraffe's just nice to look at. They're like old, wise, tall horses.
I love it. I love it. Okay. For me, I would say my superpower is I could promote anything or anybody. I know how to sell a story. And I think that's why this radio show is, you know, really good. This podcast is a really good opportunity for me because I can help to, you know, lift other people and the things that they do, as well as, you know, my own shameless plug, the Nourish Spot.
Yes, thank you.
Not even shame.
So I think it's really important. I wanted to talk about my book. The book that I'm reading now is called 100 Days to Brave. Brave is a very important word to me. At the break, we were talking about courageous and brave, and if they're the same thing. I kind of don't think that they're the same. You know, brave means you actually jump out, you step out on faith when everything is telling you don't do it, and you still do it. So that's something that I aspire to be brave regularly. So and that's my favorite word, because that's the question I'm about to ask you too. What's your favorite word and why?
Oh, go ahead.
So I think my favorite word of late has really become light.
Okay.
So my father is from Nigeria, my mother's from Liberia, and my name Nuratu means light from God. And so I definitely focused on that, light work births, and I want to be the meaning of my name. So that's fine.
You want to embody the lights. Yes.
God said, let there be light.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
I would say my favorite word.
Yes.
I want to say great.
Okay,
because it's been a hashtag of mine forever on social media, be great. Because again, I was raised thinking that I wasn't good enough just because of my environment. And I just don't believe that we are just born to just be. You know, we all have greatness in us and we just have to have it activated or activated ourselves. And I really, truly believe that we all have the capacity and ability to be great. We just have to figure out in what and how and what does that look like. So great.
Love it. Now I have one more question. My next question is, because this is the Nourish Spot Hour, I want to know, what do you do to nourish yourself? Whether it's food, whether it's reading, whether it's dancing, whether it's sleeping. How do you nourish yourself?
Food and music.
Okay.
Those things definitely, I can think of every and any situation in my life, and they have always, I can always think of how food and music played a role in it. So food and music.
Okay. And
for me, it'll be intermittent fasting, doing yoga and meditating, and also reading. Reading for me is prayer, so that's a big deal for me.
Okay. Yeah. And for me, how I nourish myself is with prayer. And also, I nourish myself with people. I actually feed off of people. Like people collect things. I think I collect people.
Ooh, Dawn. That's why she's the plug. If you ever need something, go to Dawn.
I collect people because I love to learn new stories. I love to learn new things, and I love to connect. I love to make sure that the right people know the right people, and then we can all build together.
That's right.
And because that's what's most important is us building and working together. So I'm Dawn Kelly. You're watching the Nourish Spot Hour on Caribbean Buzz Radio. We're happy to be here today with episode 3 with Nuratu Olulana, owner of Lightwork Birth Services, and Yasminetheresa Garcia with Y the G, and EBI Incorporated. And I just want to say publicly thank you to Yaz, because had she not invited me to come speak to her students, I think one's named Michael, and the other
Calvin.
one,
I'm sorry.
And,
you got it.
And the other gentleman's name was Calvin. I really hope that I had an opportunity. I really hope that what I said to them, and it was raw and real and authentic. We were in the heart of Brooklyn, okay, and and I, told them the real deal, and I encouraged them. I challenged them, and I told them my real story, and I think that's important, and I think that's why us coming together in situations like this are really important, because the more we talk to each other and we find out the stories and the journeys of each other, that strengthens us as individuals and as a community. So I want to thank you both.
Yes, thank you.
Yas, tell us again how to reach you.
Yeah, so YTheG_ on Instagram, ytheg.com is my website, and I work out of East New York at the Prince Joshua Vito Community Center. Come visit us. We just opened last August.
And you?
Lightwork Births.
Look at the camera.
Yes, lightworkbirths at gmail.com. So that's LIGHTWORK births, BIRTHS at gmail.com.
And you've been watching the Nourish Spot Hour. I'm Dawn Kelly. I want to thank you, Yasminetheresa Garcia and Nuratu Olulana. Thank you very, very much for a wonderful program. And we'll be seeing you, or I'll be seeing you all next week.
Yes.
Peace.